It's okay. Um, and before Scott kind of shows us what's going on with the website, thought I would check with anybody to see if anybody is new to the classes and how you found out about them. Kyra, you look like a new fresh face. Tell us how you found out about the classes, and we're just kind of curious.
My doctor gave me the flyer this past week when I was in her office. I had nutrition questions and she said, this is a good resource. So I popped in.
Nice. Well, we're
Great.
happy to have you.
Thank you.
And you heard Scott Wagnon and myself kind of chattering back and forth. We both kind of lead the discussion here. And we've been doing this for many years, as it turns out. We've been doing it most every week. I don't know, at least 50 or 48 to 50 weeks out of the year. I think we've done almost every week these last couple of years.
Yeah, we haven't missed a Tuesday since we started in April of 2020 with the online.
So what we do is we kind of share the science of nutrition in an attempt to kind of combat the confusion that people have over what is actually fact and what is fiction. Let people make up their own minds what they choose to do. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, how we decide who is giving us factual information. So we're going to kind of share that with you as to the sources that we use is one of the first steps tonight.
I think I recognize all the other names.
Yeah, I think I recognize most everybody else too. So I'm going to, I guess, bring up the list of.
Do you want me to show the website first?
Yeah, I was going to bring the list up, but it would be best if you showed the website, and
I can
unless
always
you have
bring
something else you care to discuss.
Oh, but anyone else can, if anyone has any questions or comments or stories or anything to share with the group before we get started, go for it. It's a good time. And I can also bring up, I have the questions on the website also. So if I can pull it up there if you would rather, or you have your own document, whatever you prefer to do.
Either way is okay. We'll see.
You friends will not believe what happened to me.
Well, tell us.
I was so, and I'm kind of a little embarrassed, but I'm going to share this because I seen a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a very long time. And she looked great. And I'm talking, she looked great. And the only thing I can think about was, what did she do? What? And I was actually kind of jealous, but not jealous, not for bad reasons, but I thought, what did she do? So when I got the opportunity and the chance to talk to her, quietly, I walked up to her and I said, you look great. What did you do? And she started to smile and laugh and she goes, I'm doing the diet where you, what we're doing.
Mm.
And I just stared at her. I said, what? She goes, yeah, I'm doing. And she told me, I'm sorry, my mind is just, I was just thinking about how great she looked. And I said, thank you. I said, I'm starting and I'm trying to get myself there, but I just haven't done it. And she said, don't give up. She said, because it just started to all fall. And I walked away feeling so good, but bad. And I couldn't believe it. Whole
love-
food. Diet.
I love that story. So how long has she been doing this?
She said she's been doing it for about a year. I mean, she looked great. She said she'd been doing it for a year, and she said at first she said it was hard. And I told her, tell me about it. It's really hard.
So how'd she learn about a whole food plant-based diet? Did you
I
ask her
didn't
that?
get that far because we were switching, but she just told me I'm doing a whole, and I was like, what? And so I says, thank you. I just told her, thank you. I says, because I go to the classes, and she said, don't give up. So we were passing, and I had to go because I had another appointment and she had another appointment. But that, like I said, it made me feel really good. But I was also kind of a little bit ashamed because I was like, oh my dear.
Well, sometimes it takes us seeing other people, seeing other things that provide the motivation that really lead to us making changes. And it's different for each of us. And maybe she will be the seed that gets planted and you water it and it grows and you do it. Maybe it'll be the next person after her that maybe it'll take 3 or 5 or 10 people for you to see. And eventually you say, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
Well, I've hit that point. I'm sorry, I hit that point when I seen. I was like, I know I can do this. It's not that I haven't been trying. I have been. It's just some little things that I just had. It's going to take time, but I was like, that's it, Sherelle. That's my story. I'm sorry.
Well, Sherelle, thank you for sharing that and keep coming to the meetings and keep, feeling the support and seeing the benefits in others. There are several people in this room who've been coming to these classes for a year or close to a year who have had pretty dramatic results, reversing their kidney function, losing weight, getting off of high blood pressure medicines, and just overall feeling better. And I can't say anybody has told us, hey, this was just the easiest thing in my life to do. We just, one day we decided we were going to change what we're eating, and everything was great ever since that day. Most everybody has had some sort of kind of struggle either with, well, I have a little increased gas, or I have a little bit of bloating, or, I was feeling hungry because I wasn't eating enough. Even though I was told I could eat whatever I wanted, I still didn't get enough calories initially till I got a little more coaching. And, my friends and family all were against this, and it was hard to spend time with them because it led to arguments about what was right. There's all sorts of experiences that people have with this, which provide kind of barriers along the way, and they need to be navigated. And by attending these classes, hopefully you'll learn some techniques that others have used that will help you on your journey toward health.
Well, I felt those are all of them, but now we'll see. I'm just beginning just not to care what no one thinks.
Well, that's good. Because ultimately you have to get to that point because you are doing something that's different than the majority of our culture is doing right now. And so you just have to get thick skin and say, okay, whatever, if they want to criticize me, that's their choice, but I'm going to do what I need to do for myself.
Yep, indeed.
Okay, Scott, do you want
Yeah,
to kind of share what's
sure.
going on?
Yeah, let me share my screen here. I'll take us to the website. And just, oh, there's the homepage of the website. So for anyone that's, for our new participant, hopefully you have this website bookmarked on your computer, livelifestylemedicine.com. Look like you had an older class flyer there. That's a really old one, and it has a different, probably a different website, but it was still that website on that flyer would take you to this updated website, livelifestylemedicine.com. So this is the homepage. So if you're new to the classes, I'd recommend spending a little time on this website. First thing to do would be to watch the website tutorial right here. Click on that, and I recorded that. It's about 17 minutes long. It gives you a full tour of what's all available on the website, how to navigate it, what resources are available. So I recommend that. And then I wanted to show the couple new things I added to the website. So first, under class archives, if you click on class archives, come down here, I've added Charlie's nutrition and medicine lectures. So if you click on this, it actually opens up. You have to hit to open. It's a Word document. So if you have Word on your computer, either on a Mac or on your desktop, and here it is. So they're big long links, but these aren't on the internet. So I had to kind of get creative to figure out how to put these on. So if you pull up this document and click on it, here's the nutrition and medicine that Charlie was the host of for the medical school, for the medical students, the real people, real stories. So if you just click on this, it'll take you right to that lecture. So here it is there. So that was the one from September. So now I got to go back. I know it's kind of weird to, here we go. And then back to the lectures. I have to open it up again, the Word document. So here it is again. And then I won't click on it just to save time. But here's the one that just was last week, the Dr. McDougall one on diabetes. So you can click here and watch that one. So I just watched that one today. So that's there. Let me get rid of this, go back to the website here. And then I was just going to show, oh, I guess that was it on the website. I was going to show about the free grocery store shopping tours that are coming up. I don't think there was anything else I was going to show on the website. Let's see here. Unless there was there something else I mentioned besides the?
Yeah, I would
What was it?
show the class archives, and because Kyra, you may want to see something. I don't know what the issues you have, but there are classes on diabetes and high blood pressure,
All right.
and heart disease and kidney disease. So you could kind of take a look at the class archives. Scott will show you here.
Yeah, well, those are all on the, I figured she could watch the tutorial. I go over all that in
okay.
the tutorial. I was just trying to remember if there was something else I was going to show on the web. I just drew a blank if there was something else I was going to show on the website before I go to the Eugene Plant-Based Provider website. I think that was it. I just wanted to show that I put that up. I don't think there was anything new I wanted to show there, but you can also get to the Eugene Plant-Based Provider website through here, through our homepage right here. So I was going to show upcoming events. Sean got it up on here. So here it is, grocery store shopping tours. You can sign up here. There's 20 people per event. And so it's coming up at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, November 2nd here. And it's going to be at the Albertsons on Hilliard. They're at 31st and Hilliard. And you can put your name and email there if you want to do that. It's going to be led by Sean and Karen, our two dietitians that are in our Eugene Plant-Based Provider group. That's on Wednesday. And then Saturday, November 5th, we're going to go back out to the Winco at Mohawk out in Springfield. And so these are free, you can sign up, and those are really, really worthwhile. So take advantage of that for those of you that are newer, or you just want to have a dietitian-led grocery store shopping tour. It'll talk about, food label reading, aisle navigation, choosing good produce, just kind of the areas of the store to kind of spend most of your time at, what places to avoid, and some other tips. So it was good. I attended one when we had it last spring. There's that. And if there's something else I remember, I can do it towards the end, but I just wanted to show you that. Stop sharing. And again, I could share oh yeah, that was what it was. I was going to share the document for tonight. That was the other thing. Knew I'd eventually remember, but I guess we were deciding whether you wanted me to pull it up on my computer, or if you wanted to pull it up on your computer. Let me pull up the website again. And so it's actually under handouts. So I could click on resources and handouts from classes. I have it under there. Let's see, I don't have it here. I have it under handouts from classes. And down at the bottom here, end of class questions and answers. So this is a good class for a new person to come, because it's a good summary class and a good introduction class. So I have it right here. And so you guys can all have access to this. So it has all of the questions we're going to go over the next 3 weeks, tonight and the next 2 weeks, all the questions, and then all the answers with links to different videos and things like that. So again, I can leave this up for you, Charlie, or I can close it out and you can open it on your end, whatever you'd prefer.
I guess I'll open it up on mine because it's easier to
Sure.
scan back and forth
Sure.
for me.
Let me stop sharing here. Oh, where's my stop share button?
There, I stopped sharing it.
Okay.
How's
You
that?
were all seeing that though, right?
Let's see.
Okay.
We're gonna see if you can see this.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, and this is let's see. I guess I need to pull this down and pull this here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Yeah, you see how this is just pretty easy to flip back and forth here with my finger. So one of the first things, and we talked about this afternoon actually in the group, someone mentioned, people said when I tell them that I'm doing a whole food plant-based lifestyle, they say, well, you can read the science, you say it's science, but who are your resources? How do you know how you trust the information that you're getting? You hear different things and there's conflicting information. And I'll bet there isn't any one of us who hasn't been confused at one time or another as to what's the appropriate, correct information. So one of the first questions is, who do you trust? What are the sources of nutrition? And most of us have trusted our parents, our grandparents, and actually our culture. We just eat whatever is available, and we haven't given a lot of thought to the fact that if we were to go on an island and really take the healthiest foods, which would keep us alive the longest, keep us in the best health, what would we actually take with us, and how would we make that decision? And so Scott and I actually found these resources independently, but we both continue to use them because they're really valuable. And one of the first resources that I found that was very valuable was a recommendation from a medical student, and the site was nutritionfacts.org. A med student recommended this to me about 10 years ago. And I kind of blew it off and said, what does the medical student know about nutrition, really? And, I hadn't ever run into a doctor who was very articulate and knowledgeable about food as medicine. So I kind of blew him off, and it took me about 6 months before I got around to checking out this site. When I checked it out, I was totally blown away and amazed at the information that was available. And I started listening to just about everything that Dr. Greger had to offer. And then that led to other resources like this resource here, the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. And so those are pretty much the two resources that I really trust. There are other resources that I trust, but if you were to ask me what are my top two choices, I would pick these two as some of the best information sources. Like I say, there are others available, but let's take a look at nutritionfacts.org. I have it listed here as the philosophy at Nutrition Facts and behind the scenes. And so I want to go to nutritionfacts.org and show you what behind the scenes is all about as to how articles are made and the information is obtained and that sort of thing. I think you might be impressed, particularly the new people, behind the scenes.
I have this one up on the website, class website under videos also.
Yeah, so you'll be able to get this again and look at it and share it with whoever you like who questions where do you get your information. So let's take a little quick look at this one.
I'm often asked how long it takes me to come up with one of my daily videos. Once the script is done, it doesn't take more than like 10 hours to create and record. It's the research phase that takes the most time. I don't think people understand how much work that takes. So I wanted to kind of pull back the curtain and give everyone a little sneak peek. If you go to pubmed.gov, where you can access the database of the National Library of Medicine, the largest medical library in the world, you can search for topics like diet or nutrition, and you'll see that there's about 100,000 papers published every year in the field of nutrition in the scientific medical literature. That's more than 200 studies a day. I can't read 200 studies a day, but 20 people could read 200 studies a day. I don't want to miss a single important paper. Then the next step is to look for what I call anchor articles. These are the new studies around which I construct the videos. I'm looking for novelty, practicality, and engagement. Is it groundbreaking? If it's just another study showing broccoli is good for you, unless there's some new insight, probably won't make the cut. Is it practical? I mean, is there some actionable information that can be used to make real-world kitchen or grocery store decisions? Right? Who cares if there's some, new whortleberry with medicinal properties that can only be foraged, wild in the Siberian tundra or something? Right? And finally, is there a way to make it interesting? That's actually probably the greatest limiting factor. There's lots of trailblazing new science with hands-on implications, but unless I can find a way to make it captivating, to add humor or intrigue or solve some mystery, sadly, it just kind of goes by the wayside. That's why we need like 10 different sites like this, so we can, I can just pass those papers along and be like, you try to make that interesting. Right? Once I have the anchor, then the real work begins. I mean, just because something is published in the peer-reviewed medical literature doesn't mean it's true. I mean, there are studies funded by the National Confectioners Association that finds that candy is just dandy. Studies covertly funded by Coca-Cola or the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a flawed study, but you have to give it that extra level of scrutiny. You always have to follow the money. Then you have to put the study in context. For all I know, that new study is some outlier or fluke. Maybe there's 10 other studies out there that show the exact opposite. How else can we make life or death decisions for ourselves and our families but by the best available balance of evidence? Right? That's why every new study needs to be placed into context. Easier said than done. For example, let's say this paper lands in my inbox arguing that fish oil increases the risk of cancer. Now, I could just make a video about it, just laying out the facts. There was this paper published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal that presented evidence that taking fish oil increases the risk of cancer. Here's the paper, here's the link to download the paper, here's all the evidence they present in black and white, right in front of you. Here's their reasoning, their graphs, their charts, their diagrams. This is the peer-reviewed medical literature, people. Done. No, that's not good enough. That doesn't answer the most important question of all. Is it actually true? For all we know, this guy is just, cherry-picking studies to fit some agenda. It's not enough for us to just stick to the peer-reviewed science. I want everything on nutritionfacts.org to reflect the best available balance of evidence. Okay. So how do I figure that out? Well, even if his arguments make sense based on the evidence he provides, you have to make sure he's interpreting the evidence he cites correctly. To do that, you have to pull all the 76 sources he cites to make sure he's not misquoting anything. And what if each of those 76 papers cites 76 other papers? And even if he correctly cited those 76 papers, what about all the papers he didn't cite? There have been more than 2,000 papers published on fish oil and cancer. And look, this paper was published back in 2013. What about the papers that have been published subsequently that cited this particular paper? And that's just one paper for one video, right? You'll be glad you did your due diligence, though, because then you'd realize, hey, that fish oil paper got retracted. Why? Because the researcher evidently failed to disclose he owned his own supplement company, which sold a competing oil supplement. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean something's amiss, but definitely requires additional scrutiny. So anyways, bottom line, ideally, we do a comprehensive search of the available literature to place any particular paper in context, while also going backwards and forwards in time to checking all the sources they cite and all the sources that cited them. And then we do that anytime a paper is published on nutrition, which, again, happens a mere 100,000 times a year. NutritionFacts.org is a 501c3 nonprofit charity that exists exclusively on donations from individuals like you. It's like a Wikipedia model of just accepting donations from users who appreciate the content, who appreciate what we're doing. We reach so many millions of people that if 1 in 1,000 makes a small contribution, we're able to continue to thrive. So if you feel like my work has enriched your life, please consider supporting us by making a tax-deductible, one-time or even better, monthly donation. Regardless, even if you never give a penny, everything on the website is and will always be free. We don't accept corporate sponsorships. Site's strictly non-commercial. There's no line of Dr. Greger's brand snake oil wonder supplements. Even all the money I get from my books and DVDs all goes straight back into the site. It's just a public service for those hungry for evidence-based nutrition.
So I want to share one more thing from his site with you all. And so I'm going to go back to Dr. Greger, share this. I'm going to go back to his nutritionfacts.org site, which we're on. And now I'm going to show you that we're going to do a little search on his site. We're going to plug in, let's say you're interested in hypertension, high blood pressure. So here we've got flax seeds can have a profound effect on hypertension. So we click on that and up comes his video, but before it's playing, it doesn't always have to play that way. Let's see. Normally, what do I see here? At the bottom is usually his resources. So let me try that again. I'm not sure what happened. That went directly to YouTube. Let's try that again. Nutrition facts.org. We're going to type in, and again, if you wanted kidney disease or high blood pressure, let's just type in kidney and see what happens there. I don't know, kidney. Okay, so here is how not to die from kidney disease. Now, you go here, and let's see, I guess that's a written article. So you're going to go to the video. Here's the video, and right here, it says underneath the video, it's view the transcript, sources cited, acknowledgement, and topics. So you could view whatever he says if you don't want to hear the video again, see if it has the information you want. But this is the point, the sources cited. I love the transparency here. He lists all the evidence-based articles that he used to make this video. So you get to look at those articles yourself and make a decision. Did he come to the right conclusion, or was he just padding this? And so you can click on one of these articles and go and read it yourself. Takes you right to the article. All right, that's what I wanted to share with you. Now, this is more evidence-based than in that respect, as far as sharing articles like that, than the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. But that was PCRM, that's .org. That's the next site. And this is a site by Dr. Neil Barnard. And he is also, he has wonderful information. I started with his 21-day Kickstart program, sharing that with people until Gregor came out with his Daily Dozen. And he has food for life classes, how to cook, and gives out some degrees to help people to teach others how to cook healthy, a vegan starter kit. He talks about topics which are of interest, goes over the ethical science and better treatment for animals in this world. But I've come to trust him over the years also, and I imagine Scott's the same way. So I'm going to stop here, see if Scott has some comments, then I'm going to see if there's any comments from the group.
One thing I wanted to add too is just to add to this topic is knowing who to trust is key. But the other is that with the research I did 10 years ago when I was starting to eat this way, was that I thought there was a lot of debate about what was the correct nutrition information, what was really the healthiest diet, the healthiest way to eat. And when I actually studied academic nutrition, is that it's a mostly whole food, plant-based diet. There was no debate about it. So I thought there was a debate that there really wasn't. So if you actually look at, the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the Harvard School of Public Health, Chan School of Medicine, with their public health, and then just looking around the World Health Organization, kind of a lot of the academics in nutrition throughout the world, it is a plant-predominant, plant-centered diet. So there really isn't a debate about that when it comes to legitimate nutrition information. So then when you see the places we're looking, it's kind of falling into the same category, eating a mostly plant-based diet.
Any thoughts from anybody else? I might also like to mention, you can unmute at any time, but I've asked most every medical student or student who I've interacted with to find something wrong with Dr. Gregor's or Bernard's site. And I've yet to have anyone really come and find anything of any real significance. So, and I've been asking this question for 9-10 years now.
I would just like to add, Charlie, that I'm glad you're still here and okay. For a while there, I could only see your ceiling. I was afraid you had tipped over backwards in your rocker, maybe. Your your rocking motion, I thought, was making me seasick, but when Gregor came on, oh my gosh, not since bobbleheads have I seen so much exaggerated head movement as he spoke.
Yeah, he is a pretty animated kind of guy, yeah? Thanks for the comments. Okay, let's go on to question number 2. We just have a few more questions to go through.
Just a few. There's 35.
Yeah. So, okay, that was the first one. Actually, we're still kind of on why you get confused. Why one article will say one thing and then another article will say another. And so one of the things that those of you who have been coming to class on a regular basis have learned is that the food industry has can have a significant bias on the articles, the way they set up the studies. They can make it look like they're accurate information, but you really need to be careful about that. So let's take a look at what this is. Food industry funded research, which is what a lot of the hype and the misinformation where it comes from. So let's take and see, look about that. I just need to get it to come up. And why it won't come up, I don't know. Sometimes life is easy and sometimes it's a little more tricky.
Try to highlight it.
So I will.
Highlight it and right click it.
Okay, so let's try this. The bottom one highlights and the top one doesn't for some reason. I don't understand that. All right, well, let's play the bottom one. See what happens. That didn't work either. Huh. So, maybe it'll come up on yours. Maybe it won't.
Looks like it depends on where your cursor is before you start, Charlie. So click up above all three at first.
Above all three.
Yeah. And then try to
Okay.
highlight the first one.
Yeah, your cursor's down below, so
All right. Well, I highlighted every, oh, I see the cursor.
Yeah.
Let's get the cursor. I can't get that cursor up. Where do I get
just
the
do your up
cursor?
arrow. Do your up arrow then on your keyboard.
All right, there we go. Let's try that. You guys are so smart, but it, huh, it has a mind of its own.
I can do it on my end if you want.
All right, go ahead. Let's see if it'll do your end.
So stop sharing.
I'm gonna
I'll share
stop
my screen.
sharing there. See what happens with that. That's so odd. Huh? Yeah. Wonders of modern technology.
Okay. Do you want this first one here?
Yeah, try that. Nothing like Apple, like an Apple. I'm not using Apple computer.
Can you guys hear it?
I can't hear it. Yeah, there's no sound yet, still.
Yeah, I can't wear my
Journals
AirPods if I'm
describe
doing it.
food corporations
Let me
as a
start
vector.
over. Now you can hear it,
Okay,
right?
there you go.
Yeah, I can't wear my AirPods when I'm sharing a video.
Just like mosquitoes are the vectors of spread for malaria, a landmark article published last year in one of the most prestigious medical journals described food corporations as the vector of spread for chronic diseases. Unlike infectious disease epidemics, however, these corporate disease vectors implement sophisticated campaigns to undermine public health interventions. Most mosquitoes can't afford the top-notch PR firms. A key message was that alcohol and ultra-processed food and drink industries use similar tactics to the tobacco industry to undermine effective public health policies and programs. What they mean by ultra-processed is things like burgers, frozen meals, chicken nuggets, fish sticks, potato chips, donuts, soda pop. Ultra-processed foods and drinks can be thought of as a menace to public health all over the world. The best recommendation on all ultra-processed foods, irrespective of their nutrient profiles, is to avoid them, or at least minimize their consumption. But how is the food industry like the tobacco industry? Well, the first strategy is to bias research findings. For example, Philip Morris implemented the White Coat Project to hire doctors to publish ghost-written confounder studies purporting to negate links between secondhand smoke and harm, publishing biased cherry-picked scientific reports to deny harm and suppress health information. This is the actual internal industry memo describing the White Coat Project, designed to reverse the scientific misconception that secondhand smoke is harmful. Similarly, funding from these large food corporations biases research. Studies show systematic bias from industry funding, so we get the same kind of tactics from the food industry, supplying misinformation, use of supposedly conflicting evidence, and hiding negative data. The same scientists for hire that downplayed the risks of secondhand smoke are the same hired by the likes of the National Confectioners Association to say candy cigarettes are A-OK as well. Of course, Exponent declared no conflict of interest. The similarities between strategies used by the tobacco, alcohol, and food and drink corporations are unsurprising in view of the flow of people, funds, and activities across these industries, which also have histories of joint ownership, like Philip Morris owned both Kraft and Miller Brewing. So what's their strategy? As a former FDA commissioner described, the tobacco industry strategy was embodied in a script written by the lawyers. Every tobacco company executive in the public eye was told to learn the script backwards and forwards. No deviation was allowed. The basic premise was simple. Smoking had not been proved to cause cancer. Not proven, not proven, not proven. This was stated insistently, repeatedly. Inject a thin wedge of doubt. Create controversy, never deviate from the prepared line. It was a simple plan and it worked. Internal industry memos make this explicit. Doubt is our product, since it's the best means of competing with the body of fact that exists in the mind of the general public. So, see, the general public is convinced that cigarettes are in some way harmful to health. So, objective number one, to set aside in the minds of millions the false conviction that cigarette smoking causes lung cancer and other diseases, a conviction based on fanatical assumptions, fallacious rumors, unsupported claims, and the unscientific statements and conjectures of publicity-seeking opportunists. We need to lift the cigarette from the cancer identification as quickly as possible and to establish once and for all that no scientific evidence has ever been produced, presented, or submitted to prove conclusively that cigarette smoking causes cancer. Similar to what's now coming out of the food industry from the same folks that brought us smoke and candy.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to, let me try sharing and going a little bit further down and go on to the next issue. The next question is, Some of you may be familiar with the AMA resolution co-sponsored by the American College of Cardiology for all US hospitals. So some of you may not be aware of this, but this is the let's see, where is it here? It's a link to the AMA resolution, and it's not here. Oh, here it is. AMA passes resolution. Hospitals should provide plant-based meals and remove cancer-causing processed meats. And here's the resolution that our American Medical Association hereby call on US hospitals to improve the health of patients, staff, and visitors by providing a variety of healthy food, including plant-based meals and meals that are low in fat, sodium, and added sugars. And this is the one that should be underlined: eliminating processed meats from the menus and providing and promoting healthful beverages. This came out in July of 2017. And how do you think the hospitals are doing? Anybody have a guess about that? Anybody
Not-
been to hospital?
Not so good.
What's that?
Not so good.
Not so good. Yeah. So I understand if you beg the hospitals for a plant-based meal, you probably could get it after a period of time, but it is not something that is really on the forefront, and the hospitals are not using this as a teaching technique to help keep patients out of the hospital. And that's what the goal is ultimately, is to use our healthcare facilities to reinforce health as opposed to feeding our heart attack patients hamburgers, bacon and eggs, and a lot of saturated fat in the form of cheese. So anyway, don't get me started or I'll keep going for a while. So I'm going to go on to the next issue. Now, there are some places that have actually dealt with this, like New York State. They are really changing the guidelines for health. California was one of the first to kind of mandate that hospitals have available plant-based meals at every mealtime. They still don't insist that patients be served them, but they have to have them available. Okay. So what's next on the list? The next question that you should all be aware of is the #1 killer in our country. Do you know what that is? And if you don't know, we're going to go to it. And the next is the 3rd leading cause of death in our country, which I think has become 4th. Scott, I think you just came from a conference in which they said it's the 4th.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's go down to the answer, and you all have access to this. So what's the leading killer? Our leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease, according to the Center for Disease Control. And the 3rd leading cause, that we're now becoming the 4th leading, may be the medications that physicians and providers are providing to our population because of the side effects of the medicine. The reason that we are having so much cardiovascular disease, it's the side effect of our diet, what we're actually eating. So there's actually, I think the next question is, there are only 2 worldwide studies that have demonstrated reversal of the #1 killer in our country, heart disease. It's the Ornish and Esselstyn studies. So if you're not familiar with them, you can drop down to this 4th question here. It's Caldwell Esselstyn and Dean Ornish. They have published in the peer-reviewed world literature documents that actually show reversal of our #1 killer, heart disease. And here are a couple of the articles that the National Institute of Health, which you can pass on to your friends and family about how we can prevent and even reverse heart disease. And so there's a little video clip on this. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Cleveland Clinic study, it's a study that actually convinced my wife and I to change what we were doing. It was Sanjay Gupta who changed our life. And he reviewed this study at the Cleveland Clinic where they took people who had their end-stage heart disease. They kept having another heart attack or another bypass or another stent. And 5 of them, I believe, were given, they were told, you're probably not going to live out the year because we can't do anything more for you. And yet when they went on this whole food plant-based diet, they were all alive 12 years later, no further heart attacks, stents, or bypasses, except for the one guy who after 6 years said, I feel so good, I'm gonna go back to eating how I used to eat. And he wound up with another bypass, and then he went back on Esselstyn's diet. He fortunately lived through that, requiring the next bypass, but he learned a lesson that it truly was the food he was choosing to eat that was the root cause of his disease. And then Ornish, his study had even better results of reversal of the clogging of the arteries, but he did more than just food. He changed people's lives, exercised them several times a week, put them in yoga and meditation, put them in group therapy to love more and hate less. And his program now is paid for by Medicare. It took, I think, close to 30 years. Any comments about that, Scott?
It took 16 years to get yeah, he published a study in 1990, a long, long time ago, but it took 16 years to get Medicare to cover it, and they finally did. They finally do.
Okay. Yeah, the study was, what, 30 years ago?
Yep.
It takes a long time for medicine to change, to become accepting of new things. And hopefully, it's not hopefully, I do see the trend, the tide is kind of reversing. And there are a whole lot more people coming on board with this idea. Just the fact that you got a piece of paper from your doctor to encourage you to come to classes like this is definitely a change. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute, see if there's any questions. Any thoughts from anybody? Because we want these to be your sessions. Anything burning on your mind, like, hey, where do I get my protein? Or am I gonna, can I really live eating? And what is it that you do eat? I don't know if you have any of those kind of questions. And if you don't have any questions, we're gonna go on to the next section because I have a question. Wondering about low iron in the body. So
I can discuss.
you want to discuss that a bit? Scott?
So it's important to, I'll see, there's another follow-up.
Can
Mhm.
that be remedied with kale or greens was the follow-up?
Yeah,
Low
so-
iron.
So the best sources of iron in plants are in your beans and greens and grains. So beans, peas, chickpeas, split peas, lentils, dark leafy green vegetables, whole grains. Those are good sources of iron. And so that if somebody's iron is low, that in of itself is not a concern unless you have anemia. So if your hematocrit and hemoglobin are low, that would mean you have some anemia. That needs to be worked up by your medical provider because you got to figure out, are you losing blood somewhere? What's the cause of the anemia? That's the number one thing that has to be taken care of first. But if you're not anemic, but you just have low iron stores, that's actually not a bad thing because you want to have just enough iron to make enough red blood cells, but not extra iron. And kind of the beauty of eating a more whole food plant-based diet is it's non-heme iron that's in plants. So heme means blood. So non-heme iron is what's in plants. And the beautiful thing about that with nature is that when your body needs more iron, it absorbs it when it comes to non-heme iron. When it comes to heme iron, which is the iron that's in animal products, so the blood from meat and other animal products, that's heme iron, and your body absorbs that really well. Your body absorbs it whether you need it or not. And heme iron is actually a pro-oxidant. It causes inflammation. And a lot of cancerous tumors are full of heme iron. And some of the plaques in the artery walls that rupture when you have a heart attack have a lot of heme iron in them. So you actually having high iron stores because you're eating a lot of animal products is not a good thing. And so I actually have patients all the time where their iron stores go down when they go on a plant-based diet. And sometimes that freaks out their medical provider, but it's actually a good thing. It's actually a sign of less inflammation. It's actually better. But again, you got to have enough iron to make your red blood cells. And so as long as you're not anemic, it's no problem. But again, if you are anemic, I have to reiterate again, you got to go to your medical provider to get a workup to make sure to find out why you're anemic in the first place. But hopefully that answers the question about iron.
One additional point I might add, those foods that Scott mentioned, you may want to be having some vitamin C or some food that has vitamin C because it tends to get absorbed a little bit better, the iron.
And that's the other beauty to plants, because plants all have vitamin C. So if you're getting the non-heme iron coupled with the vitamin C, because plants all have vitamin C, and so that's why you will absorb it. You'll have an easier time absorbing it because of the vitamin C.
So she says that she was thinking that she should be eating meat. So that was a good answer to kind of clarify that, why meat would not be the best option, even though that's what we have been led to believe in our culture. The meat industry has done a pretty good job of altering our reality to make us believe that meat is what we need to eat to get iron, but that's not it's a fiction.
I have just a statement to make.
Okay,
I met
Dorothea.
with a friend of mine, and she has high cholesterol and has had a TIA. But she says she doesn't want to change the way she's eating. She's enjoying the cheese and dairy. And I don't think that that's an isolated case.
You're right. It's not an isolated case. Many people, including myself, when I first started this, thought to myself, what's the sense in living if you can't enjoy what you're eating? And I was eating my ice cream every night and my cheese intermittently and my French fries and the oil-soaked foods and whatever. But, when this person who doesn't have much illness right now suddenly develops illness and is being faced with having to go in and have a bypass, or has a heart attack, or kidneys that are failing, or develops diabetes, They may have a little change in their mindset about how enjoyable that taste is compared to what they'll be suffering with the side effects of the disease that they're developing because of their food choices. So there's no doubt that high calorie density foods, the calorie rich and highly processed foods, they kind of light up our brain, but they really lead to ill health. And as we age, it seems like many of us choose to be a bit smarter about this.
And tastes are learned, and so I enjoy the food I eat more now than the food I ate when I was eating all the fast food and garbage food 10 years ago. So I love the food I eat. So tastes are learned, behaviors can change, and tastes are learned, and you can. I love the food. Yeah, like I said, more now than what I used to eat before.
I'll second that also. And Marcia said there's so much more to life than meat and daily oil. I eat so well with all that. I feel full of life, and I'm 74, almost 75. That's great. Okay, let's get on to the next question. What could that possibly be? We're gonna have to go back, I guess, and go back again. Okay, so the next question is, how much have our food been altered over the last 100 years in terms of sugar, fat, fiber, oil, cheese? Let's take a look at that. If you don't know this, this is one of the facts that kind of, upset me, but it gave me a better understanding of why we have epidemics of obesity and diabetes and heart trouble. So the United States Department of Agriculture Food Review of major food trends over a century from 1900 to 2010 show that sugar has increased from 5 pounds per person per year in the United States to 77 pounds, and now in this year up to 100 pounds of sugar per year per person. 5 pounds in 1900, 77 to 100 pounds per person now. Look at the oils and fats. They've gone from 4 pounds to 74 pounds. The cheese from 2 pounds to 30 pounds. So if you add up the difference in pounds of oils and fats and cheese and sugar, is it any wonder that our population is overweight? I think you'll come to the conclusion that it makes sense. And then the fruit and veggies that were grown in our American yards has decreased from 131 pounds a person per year to 11 pounds. We're not growing our own gardens anymore like we used to. And then the fiber, which is a big one, and I hope you really focus your attention on this. The average American is getting about 14 grams a day right now. But back in 1900s and in cultures that have almost no heart trouble, diabetes, overweight, they're eating 60 to 100 grams of fiber a day. So if you want to know about that, how to add more fiber to your diet, you'll listen to the fiber lecture, or you'll keep coming to these classes, and you'll figure out that you can get 23 grams or 21 grams of fiber from just 3 servings of legumes. That's a half a cup of beans or lentils 3 times a day, or a quarter cup of hummus with a couple half cups of beans or lentils. That gives you 20. And then every serving of fruit, vegetable, whole grain is somewhere between 3 and 4 grams. You add up those servings and you can get up to 60 to 70 to 80, which is what Christine and I are doing right now. Any questions about this? Anybody surprised about those facts and figures? Yikes, we need to do something different with our diet. And that's the conclusion that I come to, that as Dr. Clapper says, it's the food. And he says it over and over again. It's, you know, for years, doctors say, we don't know what the cause of this problem is or that problem. And Clapper says over and over, it's the food. Now, let's take a look at this next one. The next question has to do with the side effects of the standard American diet, the SAD diet. Heart disease starts at age 10. We talked about the rates of obesity, diabetes. We didn't talk about other chronic illnesses yet. But let's take a look at this heart disease starts in childhood. I think this is an important one for you to understand.
It was this landmark study, published in 1953, that radically changed our view about the development of heart disease forever. A series of 300 autopsies performed on U.S. battle casualties of the Korean War. Average age, 22. 22 years old, but 77% of their hearts had gross evidence, meaning visible to the eye evidence of coronary atherosclerosis, hardening of their arteries. Some of them had vessels that were clogged off 90% or more. As an editorial in the Journal of the American Medical Association concluded, this widely cited publication dramatically showed that atherosclerotic changes appear in the coronary arteries years and decades before the age at which coronary heart disease becomes a clinically recognized problem, before symptoms arise. Follow-up studies on the hearts of thousands more soldiers over the subsequent years confirmed their results. How young does it go? Fatty streaks, the first stage of atherosclerosis, was found in the arteries of 100% of kids by age 10. What's accounting for this buildup of plaque even in childhood? In the 80s, we got our first clue, the now famous Bogalusa heart study, looking at autopsies of those dying between the ages of 3 years old to age 26, and the #1 risk factor was cholesterol. You could see the stepwise increase in the amount of their arteries covered in fatty streaks as the level of bad cholesterol in the blood increased. As powerful as this was only looking at 30 kids. So they decided to study 3,000. 3,000 accidental death victims, ages 15 through 34. After thousands of autopsies, they were able to produce a scoring system, able to predict advanced atherosclerotic lesions in the coronary arteries of young people. The higher your score, the higher the likelihood you have these lesions growing in your heart. So if you're in your teens, 20s, early 30s, and you smoke, your risk goes up a point. If you have high blood pressure at such a young age, that's 4 points. If you're an obese male, 6 points. But high cholesterol was the worst. If your non-HDL cholesterol, meaning your total cholesterol minus your good cholesterol, is above like 220, that's like 8 times worse than smoking. So let's say you're a young woman with relatively high cholesterol, but you don't smoke, you're not overweight, your blood pressure and blood sugars are fine. At your sweet 16, there's just a few % chance you already have an advanced atherosclerotic lesion in your heart. But if you don't improve your diet, by your 30th birthday, there may be like a 1 in 5 chance you have some serious heart disease. And if you have really high cholesterol, it could be closer to 1 in 3. Bringing your cholesterol down to even just that of a lacto-ovo vegetarian, and you're down to here. And if you exercise to boost your HDL, you can extrapolate down a little further. So what this shows us is that even in 15 to 19-year-olds, atherosclerosis has begun in a substantial number of individuals, and this observation suggests beginning primary prevention, at least by the late teenage years, to ameliorate every stage of atherosclerosis and to prevent a retard progression to more advanced lesions. You start kids out on a low saturated fat diet, and you may see a significant improvement in their arterial function by 11 years old. Exposure to high serum cholesterol, even in childhood, may accelerate the development of atherosclerosis. Consequently, the long-term prevention of atherosclerosis might be most effective when initiated early in life, as in 7 months of age. Atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, begins in childhood. Remember, by age 10, nearly all kids have fatty streaks, the first stage of the disease. Then, the plaques start forming in our 20s and get worse in our 30s, and then can start killing us off. In our hearts, it's a heart attack. In our brains, it's a stroke. In our extremities, it can mean gangrene. In our aorta, an aneurysm. If there is anyone watching this video that is older than 10 years of age, the choice likely isn't whether or not to eat healthy to prevent heart disease. It's whether or not you want to reverse the heart disease you already have. Ornish and Esselstyn proved you can reverse heart disease with a plant-based diet. But we don't have to wait until our first heart attack to reverse the clogging of our arteries. We can start reversing our heart disease right now. We can start reversing heart disease in our kids tonight.
Okay. Anybody have any comments about that or thoughts about heart disease? And I know it's not a surprise to most of you in the room, but maybe to the new people, it could be.
Just a quick question from Hank.
Okay, Hank.
Life expectancy back 100 years ago was a lot less than it is today, yet they supposedly ate healthier. What was the cause of death back in those days compared with what's happening today?
Mostly has to do with infant mortality and infectious diseases. So if you look at the top 10 causes of death in 1900, the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was mostly infectious diseases, poor sanitation, infections, because there was no antibiotics or anything yet. So basically the life expectancy was actually better than it is today. If you made it past like age 30 or 40, then you actually, the life expectancies actually was even better. But because of the infant mortality and a lot of people dying of infectious diseases at younger ages, it skews the numbers down. So it makes it look like we're better, longer lived now, but actually we're not overall. We're actually, now it's finally, partially because of COVID-19, the life expectancy has gone down the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Yep.
I can comment, there was also a heavy toll from occupational hazards. Farming, mining, a whole bunch of jobs took a lot of people.
Exactly, yep.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And anybody else have anything they care to share?
I think people, when they eat that standard American diet, are fooling themselves. Oh, it tastes good. It must be okay for me. But there's not enough. How do I say this? There has to be scientific proof for those people to know. I mean, I've listened to doctors for years, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and I listen to Dr. Greger. I've got his cookbooks. I mean, I know that if I don't eat healthy, I'm going to go the way that my parents went, my grandparents went, and my great grandparents. And they all died of heart disease, arteriosclerosis, dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, I think food, the standard American diet, is going to kill a lot of people much sooner than they need to die, than they need to go. I mean, I was buying a can of, I wanted to get a can of tomatoes to have in my supply. Everything had sea salt and some kind of oil in it. And I thought, this is a tomato.
Yeah.
I just have to buy tomatoes and make my own tomato sauce.
Yes,
It's crazy.
good point. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else?
I wanted to mention that in the previous set of statistics, that 120-pound drop in consumption of homegrown fruits and vegetables really grabbed my attention. Hadn't heard anything like that before. And it made me think that about the term we used to have, victory garden. I think that was a reference to war. Why don't we bring it back and make it mean victory over disease and death now?
That sounds like a good campaign. I like it. So the key becomes, how do we get people to really understand that that's going to really make a difference in their health? And, you know, they are understanding it in some areas, like New York understands it, but the word is not quite spread enough yet. We need a little more time to keep spreading the word, it seems like, but we're trying.
And I was talking with a lady, she's in a wheelchair, she walks with a walker. I mean, she's overweight. She has a hard time breathing sometimes. I can't, I've got to have my meat. Oh, well, I would say just try it for 6 weeks. What is it?
Yeah.
Dr. Neil Bernard says just try it for 6 weeks and see what happens. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like a religion to choose to eat foods that are unhealthy in our country. And when you make a suggestion, it's like asking someone to change their faith. And, you know, for those of us who have made the change, it's not on the same level as changing your religion or as changing your political party, perhaps. But you would think it would be like that when you listen to some of these people. Any other thoughts? How we're going to change the world? We're going to start in Halloween. So what did we get for Halloween? Did we get candy? Take a guess. Okay, we didn't get candy. We got nuts and we got some raisins and cranberries. It's a kind of a fruit snack. It wasn't a perfect snack because it had a little sugar in it, but it was a healthier snack than Snickers bars.
My husband is good at getting these little animals out of those machines. You know, the claw handle, it comes down, picks it
Yeah.
up. He got like 3 bags of those. And one Halloween, we put those out, and the kids were grabbing those like crazy. They thought that was the best gift ever.
So they were little
Just little animals,
animals. Okay.
little things that you have in these things, and you just you pick a claw up and you pick it out and you
Yeah.
drop it in the chute and it comes out. Another quarter, you drop it, you bring it out. And we must have had 3 bags. Oh my gosh. It was crazy. The kids just loved it.
Yeah. In our neighborhood, we asked our neighbor, how many people are coming to do trick or treating? And she said, maybe 200, 250. I said, how could there be that many? She says, well, they come in carloads. They drop them off in our neighborhood. So we're expecting a massive Halloween next Monday. We'll
Well-
see.
When I was a kid going trick or treating, there was this one dentist, and he would pass out the little tubes of toothpaste. And we just thought that was so cool.
Toothpaste, huh? That's cute.
Yep.
Huh? Oh, at one point in our career, back when we lived in Corvallis, we used to give out roller skating passes, or up in Oak Ridge. They had a roller skating rink up there. And that was kind of a good thing to do. I want to tell you about something I heard on Dr. Radio. It was, this one woman said, my mom started this with us. When we got candy, she would give us, before we went out trick-or-treating, she would say, okay, a Snickers bar or this bar, when they were big in those days, it's worth a nickel, or it's worth 4 cents, or it's worth a dime, or it's worth a few pennies. Different candies, different treats, M&Ms were worth so much. So the kids, she would go out and she would get all these candies and treats, and then her mom would buy them back from her. So she only was left with just a couple little treats. And she used that money to buy things with. And she's carried that tradition on for her kids, so that her kids didn't wind up eating a bunch of this highly processed candies. Just a thought for anyone who might be interested. All right.
Our neighborhood, we only have 1 kid, and they go to town.
Yeah, if you had 5, so it could be a problem financially. All right, one last question, and then we'll see if there's any other questions, then we'll take a break till the next week. So where are we at? We're at the health benefit of unprocessed fiber, which foods contain fiber, how much fiber the American eats daily, which we went over, and how much fiber is ingested by cultures that have little to no chronic illnesses. So we're going to go to number 7. And let's see what it says. So remember, fiber is the food for our microbiome, and those bacteria in our large colon, if we feed them, they feed us back. They feed us back things like butyrate, which is an anti-inflammatory chemical. It also shuts off our desire to eat through a series of reactions, to our desire to eat more. It tells us we've had enough to eat. And remember, serotonin is also produced in our microbiome. So where do you get fiber? Fiber comes from plants. It's not in any animal product. The fiber hooks up with cholesterol and extra estrogen, and it speeds the transport of carcinogens through our gut. And it results in, for every 10 grams of fiber, you reduce heart disease and colon cancer by about 10% and breast cancer by about 8%. We talked about how you get fiber briefly, and It's really an important topic. And if you want to focus a little more attention on the fiber in your diet, it would be a healthy choice for you. So we have 5 minutes left. We're going to see, we like to leave some time for questions. So what kind of questions do you have before we carry on with this list next week?
This is, did you say we're going to take 3 weeks on this list?
Yes.
This is more of an observation. We're going to have to pick up the pace because at this rate, it's going to take 5.
Well, you're a good mathematician.
We have lots of time. We can take as long as we want, actually.
Yeah, so Scott figured that we could take 3 weeks. In the past, we've done this in 2. So if you can imagine, we were just like flying through this stuff. We didn't share any videos and decided to take it a bit slower. So maybe we took it a bit too slow, but we'll adjust. We promise. But we won't promise to finish in 3 weeks. Like Scott says, we could do another week, perhaps.
Yeah, because I figure the rest of the year we'll just do like we did last year about this time, which was whatever topics you guys want to talk about. You know, the holidays are coming. You know, we kind of take the class where it goes. We just see where it goes with the questions that we get, and I kind of, when we recorded, I kind of labeled the class kind of what the theme was and what we kind of talked a lot about, and that was pretty fun. And then of course in January we'll start the whole classes over again like we did beginning of this year. So it's a good time to be jumping in anytime, or if you're newer and you haven't seen the beginning classes, then hang on till January, but we'll have a lot of fun the rest of November and December.
I want to put in one more plug for Chef AJ next Tuesday. For those of you who are interested in weight loss, she has an amazing story. I think you'll find her inspiring. I think you'll get motivated. I think you'll learn some things. Maybe even make a few more changes in what you're choosing to eat after listening to her. She's worth the time and the cost is right. It's close your eyes and what do you see? Nothing. So try to come. It's free. Scott has managed to get the link up.
I'll put it up on Sunday. It's right here. This one right here. So
He'll put it in the email next week, I suspect, but here it is right here.
On Sunday I'll paste this into the class email. And so for the new,
So notice the Zoom link is different than our classes here. And notice that there's a password that you'll need. It's capital N, little I, big capital M. Got it? Okay, if you have questions, let us know about that. Anybody else have anything that they care to share here? We're getting close to an hour and a half already. Hard to believe.
I might just pass on one really short story I remembered about trick-or-treating in my childhood.
Okay.
One of the few times that someone was not just passing out candy, they actually invited me into their home. And I had the chance to win a candied apple, an entire, I don't know if it was caramel glazed or what, but first I had to get down on my knees with my hands behind my back and fetch an apple out of a wash tub full of water. And they got so many laughs from watching us kids. It was more or less like waterboarding. It was my one and only exposure to the experience.
bobbing for apples.
That's pretty interesting. I've never had that experience, and that was at a stranger's place?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Out in the country or in the city?
Kind of suburb.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, some people have struggled in the class and they've received help from either one of the medical students and the, phone consults, Zoom links are free. We will support you in any way we can. I will talk with people intermittently as I'm no longer doing the practicing physician thing, just doing the medical stuff. But whoever needs support, we'll be happy to talk with you if you're struggling or you have questions, especially if you're new. Just send an email.
Our emails are on the class website under About Us, and also Contact Us, but you can just go to About Us and it has Charlie and my name and our emails, and then Eric too. Especially if you have kids and you have questions about nutrition with children and how to make it work in families and stuff. Eric Colgrove, he's a pediatrician at Oregon Medical Group, and he's a good resource, and he offers to email you back for no charge as well.
And as Scott said, when we get done with this series of questions, when we get into the December month, we're going to try to address any topics that you are particularly interested in also. So send them to us or bring it up at one of these meetings. And we're here to try to, talk about the topics you're interested in too. Any last words there, Scott?
No, I hope everyone has a good week and enjoy the fall. It feels like fall out there now, so we're seeing.
Hey, you guys, this is Ken. I'm
Hey,
not on the board, am I?
No, you're on iPhone.
Okay. Well, hello from very sunny and warm Phoenix, Arizona.
It's like low 50s and rainy here today, Ken.
Yeah, it's higher 70s and sunny.
I guess
But-
the question I have for Arizonans and Southern Californians is, where is your water? Where are you going to get that over the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I'm not a Californian, but or
Okay.
Arizonan, but I flew from LA to Tucson today, and I saw some fairly big dams with no water behind them. And that Imperial Valley, sucks a lot of water from a long way, and there's so much agriculture there, and you see all that just unending desert past the Imperial Valley in all directions, and you just know that's all going to dry up and blow away. And like half the tomatoes in America are growing there, not to mention a lot of other things. So
Yeah.
I think Californians are nervous. They need to be.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can do to help with the global warming is to stop raising animals for livestock and transition to plant-based foods. So we keep pushing that message. We'll continue to do it. Okay, everybody.
Good night. Have a good
Until the
Interesting.
next time.
Evening. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
night.